This morning, it is Brian White's turn to come back and regale you. Brian, so lovely to see you.
Randy, it's as always.
As you said before. So, I try to regale them, Brian, but from time to time, I think that they get used to me. And so I need, a different comedic tone.
Well, of all the people who interview me, you're definitely one.
Definitely one of, yes.
Yeah. So, you are one of the people who has interviewed me of all time.
Well, I tell you what, last week I was feeling like I was in a news like avalanche because, as you know, I report financial news, Brian, and the stock stuff. And man, with the whole PCE thing and the stock going down on Friday and everything else. And then what does Elon do? He drops the Highland on us.
Yeah, where did that come from? It's crazy. It's almost as if one could have predicted it.
I don't know who.
Yeah.
So Brian, there was a lot of predictions that it would come out on September 1, which turned out to be true. There's a lot of predictions that it would start to ship, I guess, in October. Maybe you were among those. I don't actually know all the things you did or didn't predict about it. But at this point, we now have it. And
yes.
I have watched a couple of your videos over the last few days, but I wanted to hear it from you directly on my channel. I have reported that I think this is breakthrough level, that it puts this car so far out of the class for the price point that it's unbelievable. I mean, you're now talking about a car that has the classic styling, interior, appointments, road noise, vibration, suspension, etc., for a $65,000 Mercedes, BMW, etc., but it doesn't cost close to that. So we've gone way past this business of being in some kind of, reaching equality, reaching parity with ICE, and it's way, way below ICE. Anyway, with that introduction, I'm going to turn it over to you. What is your out of the box feelings about this new product?
Well, I'm just going to say that, first of all, you nailed it. So I'm glad I could help, and I'll check you out next week. So the thing is, let's start with the people who didn't like it. They said, I wanted structural castings. I want our structural battery and giga castings. Now, structural battery is coming. It's a matter of when. We know they can make a car with both variants in the same factory because they already do it in Texas. There are structural 4680 bodies that go out and non-structural ones that still have the floor pan in them for the 2170 batteries. 4680s are taking longer to get online than we thought. When that happens, if that happens, they should be able to make the switch relatively easily because they designed the car around it. Another catch was that there are schematics, so to speak, not schematics, but like a cutaway of the vehicle that was captured on, I want to say, the French Tesla website. And it shows that the structure no longer is integrated into the firewall, meaning you could shear that whole front off and replace it with a casting. And I believe they will do that as soon as they are able to. We know that they didn't have space to build the casting area in Shanghai because the site is maxed out and we haven't seen any new buildings go up. So that tells us that they would need to expand. Where would they expand? Well, maybe wherever it is that they're going to build the mega factory is where they're going to build this as well. So then you've got Fremont. We've seen them. They're working right now to put in another casting area. It's just next to the existing casting area. And we believe it's an expansion because the footings are very deep. So a lot of people looked at it and said, this isn't as much as I wanted. I wanted more. I wanted new batteries, new motors, I wanted new everything. And that's not what a refresh is. We weren't getting an all new Model 3, but what we got has 50% new parts. It's got new glass, new infotainment, a whole lot of upgrades, including things that make it quieter, and it weighs 10 kilograms more than the old one. That is there is a lot of engineering under the skin that we're not seeing that's making it so much better, but only 10 kilograms heavier.
Interesting. So then I had heard last week that when it first came out and everybody was just getting their news, that it was 150 pounds lighter. I don't know, what is that, 70 kilograms or something, lighter. And you're saying, no, it's the other way. It's a little heavier. So that's
well, I think we're all looking at the things we find online, which are not necessarily definitive.
Okay.
But in any case, if it is, whether it's 150 pounds lighter or 20 pounds heavier, that's the same weight as before for a whole lot more car.
Right.
So if you want, well, I wanted it to be even quieter. Well, the design was a little dated. It still looked good inside and out, but now that we can see the refresh, we can almost universally agree, all the opinions. I've seen very few people who said, I don't like it. The only point of contention was some people don't care for LED lights. Fine. Turn them off. Turn them off, or set them to white. I don't know. But if you don't, but that's such a tiny nitpick. And that's people who haven't had LED lighting before. And we know because it's a new feature in cars. So we've got that. Then the question, but I wanted it even quieter. Right. But like you were saying just a second ago, we're not talking about a $65,000 car. We're talking about a $40,000 car. In China, it's going to be less than $40,000 for an absolutely premium car. Now, when you started your statement, you were saying, is it true that this blows everyone out of the water? And I was ready to say no. And then you finished your sentence, for the price. And the answer is absolutely. Absolutely, yes. This is going to, there was a great picture I saw on X of the Tesla at the European car show. Mm-hmm. And there was a BMW engineer there, and he was giving it the side eye because he has to know the amount of trouble that this spells.
Okay, so yes. So, you may remember when I think we had this conversation, I've said multiple times, at least on my channel, that if I was in the market at all, which unfortunately I'm not because I don't drive that much, I would just want it to really look a little more aggressive, a little sportier. I would want it to be a little quieter, and I would want it to have a little softer suspension. And I'd be in. I have to imagine those are pretty much, I think, the three things that people cared the most about: eliminating stalks, changing how the air conditioning vents work. Those are all nice. Putting these screen in the back, if you got kids, great. But those three, I think, were key.
Yeah. And adding a little bit more range. Nobody is going to say no to more range.
Yes.
My mom once built, we had this very large carport, and she wanted a garage. So she had a over 1,000-foot garage put in. And I said to the guy building it, doesn't this seem excessive? And he said, no one has ever come back to me and said, I wish I built a smaller garage. And sure enough, over the next 25 years, they filled it all right. Boy, did they fill it.
Yeah.
So the same thing with range. Nobody's going to complain that a car has too much range. And again, the doubters, the ones who are still doubting, the ones who I suspect are doubting professionally, are saying, yeah, but I wanted even more range. Those cars exist. They're just much, much, much more expensive. And if that's your priority, go get that car. Yeah. But in the meantime, we want an affordable mass market car. And to the people saying, but this isn't affordable because I can't afford it, we have to look at industry averages. Yeah. Cars are still selling around pre-pandemic levels despite the higher prices, which means the cars are not overpriced. And you brought up that this is now at cost parity. With incentives, it's below cost parity in many places. Much below. Many buyers. Yes, not for everyone, not in every case, and not all models. But looking at the Model 3, I don't know what percentage of buyers would qualify for one or more of the incentives. Yeah. But in some states, there can be 5 or 6 different ones that you can apply for. If you don't make enough to get the 7,500, maybe you get 3,000 from as a low to moderate income household.
Right.
So it's, and what is well, but I can get a Camry for 30,000. Well, kind of no, you can't. Kind of no, you can't. If you could find one, you could order it, but it's not comparably equipped, not even close. So you could get an inferior trim level of Camry for less money, I guess. But why would you? Why would you when you're going to save hundreds a month on gas? Yeah. And just the free autopilot that you get with all new Teslas is better than the ADAS that you would pay extra for from almost any other brand.
Right. So this raises two questions for me, really big questions that I've been talking about this all weekend. I know you addressed it slightly on your channel, but I want to argue with you about this.
I'm ready.
I'm nervous about the Osborne effect. Let's talk about, there's two Osborne effects. One is the Model 3 USA. So I'm now going to ask you to go into your crystal ball. I know you have an ability to work in the future, and maybe you can share. When is the USA vehicle going to be announced and or available for shipping?
So there's two schools of thought on it. One school of thought is that they're going to wait until the castings are ready. I don't share that belief. If that happens, we're talking 3 to 4 months at a minimum. I think that's too long to wait. The other school of thought is, nope, they're going to roll it out any day. So we could be talking a week. We could be talking less than 4. But that's the question there. So I made a video this morning. I don't know when this video is going out. I made a video on Wednesday where I explained how the changeover works from what I can see. And that is that both Fremont and Shanghai have 2 lines each for Model 3. They've only converted one of the lines in Shanghai. And I believe that because if you look at the August and the first week of September registrations, they're still very strong, as strong as ever. So how could that possibly be if they had taken both lines down and had 0 customer deliveries? The answer is one line is still running the old. Well, no one's going to buy the old one if the new one's available. Sure they will, because the performance model is only available on the old style for now. And while China and Europe may not be able to take an entire line worth of performance Model 3, that line can still make standard range and long range and ship all 3 variants to Canada, which will continue on this body style until the US factory spools up. And then as far as Osborning in the US, if they also do one line first and keep producing on the second line until they get it up to speed, well, who's going to buy those? Because we can see that it's time, that they're coming, that they're out. Well, again, I think it would go the other direction, that on the new one, they would start with performance only and have standard range and long range as the old body style. That would allow companies like Hertz to hurry up and buy as many as they can before the price goes up, because Hertz doesn't care about the new body style. That's not what's specified when you rent a Tesla. Right. You rent a Tesla, right, and you get a Tesla. So they want, especially if we're talking standard or long range versus performance, and performance on the new one is probably going to be bumped up to $3,000. So we're talking at that point a $10,000, $15,000 spread between the standard range and the performance. Those standard ranges will have a lot of eager last minute buyers who want to get in on the discount. And regardless, in the case of all these vehicles, the margin's going to be beautiful.
Yes, well, and that's something I want to talk to you about. I think we will actually do a second show, because I do want to talk to you a little bit about some of the internal factory kinds of things that are going on that are affecting things like margins. Okay, so I know for a fact that if I was a buyer right now, there's no way I would buy. You mentioned a $5,000 difference, and yes, a $5,000 difference does make a difference to a lot of buyers. But overall, somebody who's already going to spend $35,000, $40,000, $45,000 is probably not going to worry about the 5 if they're going to get all those benefits coming out soon. So I do think there will be some Osborning going on. I'm a little more worried about the Osborne effect on the Model Y worldwide.
Okay.
Model Y is a more expensive vehicle to begin with, so it's another class. I hate to use the word class of client, but somebody who can afford a $50,000 or $55,000 car, the $5,000 becomes a less important aspect of the purchase decision, and the quietness of the ride, the comfort of the ride, the stylistic features, all of those things, I think, go up in what matters. So any theories on your part in terms of when Juniper, I guess they're calling it, when the Y version will start to become available?
So I'm going to I'll get to the Juniper question very shortly. I did want to say that the Y is a different size. And for some people, that size is the most important part. Secondly, the current generation of Model Y is probably closer to what the new Model 3 is than the old Model 3. The old Model 3 was quite dated in terms of its design sensibilities and engineering, and they had a chance to catch up a lot of those things. So the Y is probably quieter than the 3 is today in the US, so it doesn't have as far to catch up. Now, on to the question of when is Juniper coming? One point that I had made today was that I haven't seen parts, I haven't seen schematics, I haven't heard tell of it. That tells me that it's quite a ways off, and that would make sense because the Model Y is years newer than the Model 3. It is not as overdue for a refresh, but someone pointed out in the comments, the overlap between parts is substantial enough that I may not have seen them. You don't need to code name. Some of the parts I saw codenamed Juniper or codenamed Highland would be the same as in the Juniper.
Right.
So the fact that I haven't seen them, as this viewer pointed out, doesn't paint any picture. Incomplete, misleading, or other. There's no picture to paint because they're the same parts. So what parts would even exist outside of Tesla for it? They'd probably be the same tires. The risers under the seats are taller. Oh, they're probably the same risers from the current Model Y, or if they've changed, I don't know that they'd necessarily even have anything other than a part number on them. The body panels may be different, but those are made in-house. So a lot of it is stuff that's internal that I do not have a source for. So Juniper could be coming sooner than I think, but I still believe it's a ways out. I think right now, all hands on deck, get the Cybertruck up, running, and out. It could be that is the kick in the pants Model Y needs to take sales to the next level, because they now have spare capacity in Berlin and Texas to build more Model Ys, and they don't appear to be continuing the ramp, even though they could. So that tells me maybe it's something that they're more motivated to do than I thought. But you're already the best-selling car in the world, so you have to wonder how much headroom remains. And if the answer is, well, if we could make it $3,000 cheaper, that expands your market. And then coming into next year or beyond, interest rates will start to normalize, hopefully. And as that happens, the payment goes down. You were saying, $3,000, $5,000 may not make a difference to many buyers. Well, on a $35,000 car, that's like 12 to 13% of the payment. If the payment's $500 and now you're at $445, that's a big deal. But I can see both sides of it.
Yeah. So I just know when we got the Model Y, and it's my wife's car, and she was used to driving a Lexus, but it was a 20-year-old Lexus. When she got in the new Model Y and started driving it around, she said, "I feel sorry for everybody else on the road." That's how much she loved her new Model Y, and still feels exactly the same way. Because it's just she's a spaceship. It's just so completely better than anything else that is out there. But we both remarked that it did not have as nice a suspension as her 20-year-old Lexus had.
Yeah.
And so when you're used to driving a luxury vehicle, and I can remember driving Cadillacs. I had a Jaguar. I had some of the early Acuras. I had an Acura just 7 or 8 years ago. All of them had better suspensions, are a more comfortable ride, while still, I mean, the Acura was still plenty sporty. Even Cadillacs are sporty, okay, the smaller ones, with a really cushy suspension. They're still extremely quick. So I don't know that needed to be such the trade-off. Now, maybe they did believe it was going to be an all-male crew buying them. I don't know, that wouldn't care as much. But whatever the case may be, once the word gets out that it's possible to have a nicer suspension, that alone could easily cause people to put off the purchase. I know it would in my household.
I don't know. I don't know how many people necessarily even test drive a Tesla before buying one. I know a lot of people historically haven't. I believe that trend is changing, but I don't know how much of it you notice necessarily during a brief test drive.
I suspect it would be more of the word of mouth. You know, we are still depending in this world on this particular product. Word of mouth is the only way Teslas sell, apparently. Now, again, I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, we need to advertise. Even though I'm a marketing guy, I'm perfectly fine. If word of mouth works, go for it. All right. So those are my main questions then. Okay. So nothing in the pipeline that you've heard that says for sure that Model Y is happening. But as you mentioned, that's kind of what I said on my channel as well, is most of these changes seem to be things that could be made without a significant change in the line, so to speak. I mean, you can throw in another screen in the back. I don't know that you'd have to interrupt the line a lot to get that screen in the back. You'd have to run some new wiring, I suppose. But I don't know. Anyway,
I suspect when the Model Y is refreshed, it'll be as substantial a refresh as we saw on the Model 3.
Yeah, right.
It might not be quite as much because it doesn't have as much room to improve as the Model 3, but I still think it will bring it up to the level that we saw of the Model 3.
All right. Well, Brian, I appreciate it as always. We will do a part 2 to this because there's a whole nother range of things that I didn't get to that I definitely want to talk to you about. So stay tuned. That'll be Thursday. I think that is when that particular episode will present. So look for that. Hit like if you like having Brian on. Hit subscribe. Do all that kind of stuff. And Brian, thanks again for showing up.
Yeah, you know.
All right. Thanks to all of you. It's been great talking to you.